The Raiders appear to be making smart moves, plus we have a shocking update about Gardner Minshew. Let's dive in. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. The Las Vegas Raiders have officially released Gardner Minshew, but not in the usual manner. Instead, he was released with a failed physical designation, meaning he didn't pass his physical evaluation. This raises questions about whether the Raiders can save the $7.6 million in dead cap money owed to him, which is guaranteed under his contract. However, the short answer is no. They are obligated to pay him. This failed physical designation could also affect Minshew's prospects with other teams. If he can't pass a physical, other teams might hesitate to sign him. But now we have a shocking update that the Kansas City Chiefs' fourth acquisition during the NFL's free agency period occurred Thursday when they added veteran quarterback Gardner Minshew as a Mahomes backup. Both parties agreed to a one-year contract. Details are yet to be released. I will share update in the next video. Now, moving to another news, the Raiders have officially announced they're bringing back pass rusher Malcolm Koonce on a one-year deal worth up to $12 million. This is a move that makes a lot of sense, and honestly, I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. This guy has the potential to break out. We finally started to see that in 2023. He was on the verge of taking his game to another level, but then, unfortunately, he suffered an ACL injury, and that was a massive setback. It's a shame because we never got to see what the Raiders' defense could have been. With a fully healthy lineup, Koonce, Crosby, Butler, Wilkins, it just didn't come together. But now with this new deal, we might finally get to see that potential realized. This move is huge for the Raiders because going into this offseason, the last thing they needed was uncertainty at defensive end opposite Maxx Crosby. Sure, they've got Tyree Wilson on the roster, but let's be real. He hasn't shown enough to justify the 7th overall pick. At this point, it's hard not to see him as more of a miss than a hit, especially when you consider the talent the Raiders passed on, like Jalen Carter or Darnell Wright. That's tough to swallow, and I think as time goes on, 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to see just how impactful those guys become. Meanwhile, Wilson is still a question mark. By bringing back Koonce, the Raiders give themselves some breathing room heading into the draft. They don't have to feel pressured to reach for a defensive end just to fill a need. That's a big deal because when you draft out of desperation, you risk making poor decisions. Imagine going into the draft and missing out on your top targets, say Abdul Carter, or your preferred wide receivers are off the board, and then settling for a second-tier defensive end who might not even be ready to contribute to year one. This move avoids that scenario entirely. For Koonce, this deal is also smart. He's betting on himself with this one-year contract, looking to prove he's back to full strength so he can secure a bigger payday next year. And for the Raiders, it's a win-win. If Koonce delivers, they've got a top-tier pass rusher at a reasonable price. If not, they've only committed to him for one season. Looking ahead, this defensive line has the potential to be one of the best in the NFL. I'm not just throwing that out there casually, it's a realistic possibility if everyone stays healthy. I've watched a lot of tape on defensive lines across the league, including the Eagles, who have a great unit. But on paper, the Raiders line, with guys like Crosby, Koonce, Butler, and Wilkins, is even more talented. Now, of course, the Eagles have Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive minds in the game, which gives them an edge in terms of scheme and execution. But strictly from a talent standpoint, the Raiders are right there. Think back to the last 9 games of the 2023 season. Even with all the injuries, teams struggled to block Koonce and Crosby when they got rolling. Those two alone were causing problems. Add in Adam Butler, who started to flash during that stretch, and now Christian Wilkins, a top 10 defensive tackle. It's clear this group has the potential to dominate. The Raiders are building the right way, focusing on their defensive front instead of overpaying at positions like safety or linebacker. Losing players like Trevin Moehrig and Robert Spillane might seem tough, but the value just isn't there. Paying a safety $17 million or a linebacker $12 million doesn't make sense when those positions don't impact the game the way a strong defensive line does. Spending wisely on the trenches will pay dividends, and this move with Koonce is a step in the right direction. Right now, safeties just don't have the kind of impact that justifies paying them huge amounts. It's similar to paying a guard $19 million, like the Packers did with Aaron Banks. Banks is a good guard, no doubt, but at $8 to $10 million, he'd be great value. At $19 million, though, it just doesn't make sense. On the other hand, getting Malcolm Koonce back for $12 million is an absolute steal for the Raiders. Yes, it's only a one-year deal, which might seem like a downside, but this doesn't rule out the possibility of an extension if Koonce performs well in the first few weeks. If he plays at a high level for 3, 4, or 5 games, there's no reason the Raiders couldn't lock him in long-term. A deal in the range of $18 to $20 million annually wouldn't be out of the question. For comparison, Josh Sweat is making around $17 million a year, and I'd argue Koonce is a better pass rusher than Sweat. at least based on what we saw in those 9 games before Koonce got injured. Teams prioritize pass rushers, and Koonce has the potential to make a significant impact. As much as I'm thrilled about Koonce, the Raiders also made another notable move that could indicate a shift in their defensive strategy. After losing Trayvon Mullen, the team signed free agent safety Jeremy Chinn to a 2-year, $16 million contract. That's $8 million a year, which is excellent value for a player like Chinn. He's not a top 10 safety and won't rack up double-digit interceptions, but he's a versatile and productive player who can contribute in multiple ways. Chinn is a true Swiss Army knife on defense. Last season, he logged 470 snaps inside the box, and only 14 of those were in a traditional strong safety role. That tells you he's essentially playing as a linebacker. In fact, he lined up 106 times as a defensive lineman, specifically as an outside linebacker, either on the right or left side. That means he was positioned about 3 yards outside the offensive tackle on those plays. This versatility is a huge asset. Chinn also played 369 snaps as a free safety, where he patrolled the middle third of the field, and 222 snaps as a slot corner. He can line up on the line of scrimmage, drop back 20 yards into coverage, play in the box, or even cover slot receivers. His ability to do it all makes him a perfect fit for what the Raiders seem to be building on defense. It's worth noting that the Raiders have lost some key players this offseason, including Robert Spillane, Nate Hobbs, and Mohrig. These were significant losses at all 3 levels of the defense. Spillane was a leader in the 2nd level, responsible for calling plays, while Mohrig led from the 3rd level. Hobbs, although not handpicked by Patrick Graham, was a versatile piece Graham highly valued. This shift in personnel suggests the Raiders might be moving away from the defensive scheme Graham had in place. Losing players Graham trusted, like Spillane and Mohrig, signals a potential change in approach. Chinn's versatility might be a cornerstone of this new direction, as he fits multiple roles and brings flexibility to the defensive unit. It's an intriguing situation to watch unfold, and it'll be fascinating to see how the Raiders' defense shapes up in the coming season. With moves like bringing back Koonce and signing Chinn, they're setting themselves up for a potentially dynamic year. After reviewing Chinn's tape, I'd say he's not quite on Trayvon Mullen's level as an all-around safety. Mullen is more polished in coverage, but Chinn brings a different skill set. He's a much harder hitter, sets the tone physically, and is more effective around the line of scrimmage. He's better at defending the run and has the size to match up against bigger tight ends. That kind of versatility is invaluable, especially in a system that seems to value flexibility. The financial side reflects their respective skill sets and roles. Mohrig secured a $17 million contract, while Chinn's deal is for $8 million annually. But Chinn's value isn't about being a pure safety, it's about his ability to fit into a system and fill multiple roles. This is key because positions like safety, linebacker, and corner are often heavily system dependent. A perfect example of this is Darren Bland with the Cowboys. Under Dan Quinn, Bland, a 5th or 6th round pick, broke records for interceptions and pick sixes. That's the power of a well-designed system. So by bringing in Chinn, the Raiders might be signaling a shift toward a new system. Another interesting angle to consider: could Chinn end up playing linebacker for the Raiders? It's not guaranteed he'll stay in a traditional safety role. This kind of positional fluidity aligns with what the Raiders seem to be building. The Raiders already have some young safeties on the roster, like Devin Harper, Trey Taylor, and Isaiah Pola-Mao. While it's hard to predict their development, the team's comfort level with this group will be telling. Adding Chinn helps, but will the Raiders draft another safety? This year's class is strong, with prospects like Malaki Starks, who plays a similar tone-setting, hard-hitting style as Chinn. Starks could be a game-changer for this defense. Overall, the Raiders appear to be making smart moves, signing value players like Chinn for $8 million and Koonce for $12 million, rather than overpaying for guards or other positions. It's a more sustainable approach that allows them to build depth without sacrificing cap flexibility. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next update.